All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out my channel, or podcast, I should say, on this one. And I'm going to get into something crazy because a lot of times I come up with these crazy titles and it's just things I think about. And lately I've been doing anti-aging. I've also been doing relationships. And I also throw in health and fitness or wellness, whatever the hell, according to what I see or have learned or studied. And what I want to talk about today is really something that kind of I grew up with. And I call it reverse anorexiism, where no matter how big I got, I always felt small. It's a form of body dysmorphia, right? But I was thinking, is having body dysmorphia a good or bad thing? Now, I would think everybody's going to jump down my throat and say it's a horrible thing, Rich. Having that because, if, say, you're a girl or even men with anorexiism. And then on the flip side, you got a lot of guys that become obsessed with wanting, and women become huge, steroids, growth hormone, kind of have a lot of health issues later in life, heart attacks, strokes, with other drugs as well. And I get body dysmorphia is kind of, it's a rough thing. It's rough. I didn't have the other end of it where I learned about, because I wrestled for many years, about like kind of starving yourself to make a certain weight. And that's one of the reasons I never wanted to go to college to actually wrestle, because they wanted me to stay the same weight. And I was like 135 pounds in high school. And I think if I went to college, I really think they wanted me to wrestle at 138 pounds. I would have to stay at that weight, and that would have stunted my growth. I honestly believe that, because I wouldn't have ate, and I would have held it there where I said, I don't want any of that shit. I want to be a beast. And what was interesting is after I left high school and stopped wrestling and started eating again, a lot of eating, I jumped up to 210 pounds. And then after a certain amount of time, 240, 250 pounds. I became a monster. And I would run into guys that I used to wrestle at my buddy's college. And now I'm 220. I went to go see some of these guys. They were like 135 pounds still. And I'm 100 pounds almost heavier than them. And they just didn't look healthy to me. But, back to body dysmorphia, I think the one thing I will pull out of this saying, it's maybe not as bad as you think, because I think a lot of people have this. I think way more people that they talk about, they want to be thinner, or they may have a problem. Women may want a bigger ass, I don't know, be in better shape. Men too want bigger muscles, chest, arms, legs, strength on both ends. Having something like that, body dysmorphia, again, can be a strength. And I know this sounds kind of crazy because I looked at it as a strength, especially later in life. Having that issue of always wanting to be bigger, I went too far with it. I'll admit that. For me, naturally. Thank God I didn't jump on steroids, because I wanted to get up to 300 pounds like Dorian Yates. And I was really considering it, but I was really getting good results just eating a ton of food. And I wasn't even taking a lot of supplements, but I kept gaining weight and getting stronger. I had the genetics to pull it off, where most people, I don't think they have that. I was just so fortunate with my parents to give me the genetics to be able to get that big, that strong, and still look pretty good. I still had a pretty big waist, but I really looked like a bodybuilder for the most part. Most people thought I was a bodybuilder when I wasn't. But, after that, let's say I started to think about and say, I still have this. I still feel like if I lose weight, then I'm getting small and I want to look bigger, and my traps and my back and all these things. But as time went on, I learned to really love my body. And I kept working out. And then I kind of sculpted to what I want it to be now. I know at my age, I'm very comfortable with the way I look. Even though most people that thought when I was big, they wish I was kind of big. And then other people who knew me when I was thinner, they wish I was thinner. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny how that goes. But I'm very comfortable, but I had to go through it. But I think, again, having a body dysmorphia makes you really pay attention to your body. It's when it goes overboard. And I get when it goes overboard, it goes overboard for a lot of, men and women. A lot of people even die from this. I remember Karen Carpenter, younger. She was one of my favorite singers. And she had anorexiism. And I was shocked because I couldn't understand why anybody wouldn't want to eat if they're hungry. That made no sense to me. And then she was so thin and she still thought she was overweight. It was shocking to me. But then as I later in life started to realize about myself, is no matter when I looked in the mirror, no matter how big I got, I felt small. And, it was an insecurity that I had. But again, it kept me in good shape. And I think a lot of people, if you have body dysmorphia to a certain degree, and it doesn't have to be extreme, use it to your advantage. A lot of times I think we just want to say, oh my God, you have body dysmorphia, go see a psychiatrist. Please don't starve yourself, or please don't get any bigger. Please don't get on steroids. Please don't lift too many weights. Please, all these other things. Listen, I think we all have these ups and downs throughout our lives where, I believe no one goes unscathed for the most part. I think we all have issues. I don't care who you are. It may not be with body dysmorphia. It may be with drinking, drugs. It may be insecurities. It may be, I don't know what the hell it is. I don't know what it is, but I think everyone has something. But when it comes to your body, and you have body dysmorphia, I think you can work through this. I honestly do. I've seen it happen, time and time again. Just one thing I will say to you, and I've never done the anorexic thing, so I'm not going to speak for that, but I did have to lose a lot of weight at times with wrestling, and it's brutal. I don't know, though, what was worse. Starving? That's brutal. I'm going to tell you right now, when you got to lose a lot of weight, or you're trying to. But when I was eating 5,000 calories a day for not just years, but for decades, that was brutal as well. You're not hungry. I'm not going to say you have the hunger component, obviously, but you start to get bloated and you feel sick and a lot of times nauseated because you're eating so much. And even when you're sleeping and getting out of bed or all these other things and carrying all this weight. So they both have their, their tolls that they're taking on you. But yeah, I just thought I would bring this up because I just think a lot of people don't think you're alone. I think there are so many men and women out there that are not happy with the way they look and are never happy with it. And I do think a lot of us go to the extreme, either one way or another, get too thin or get too big. Because I kind of did both, actually, to a certain degree. So I kind of understood both. Because I had to cut weight before, again, with wrestling, maybe more weight that I should have, or moving more than just one weight class, 2 or 3 at times, which is, I cannot even imagine doing that nowadays. But, just take your time and understand you're not alone. Talk to people about it. If you want, you could reach out to me. I'm at rich@CELENZA.com, and I can go through it with you as well. And if you need real help, please go to a doctor. I'm not, or wherever you have to go. I definitely don't want you to starve yourself, and I definitely don't want you to hurt yourself trying to get as big as possible either. So if you need help on that level, I'm definitely no doctor or nutritionist or any of that stuff. But again, if it's not as extreme, use it to your advantage, man. You got to sometimes use what you got, to make you healthier, I guess you could say, because it definitely made me healthier. And I look at it and say, a lot of times, I will wrap it up with this, if I didn't have a lot of those insecurities, I would have never stayed in shape for as long as I did, or been as consistent and worked out for as long as I have and in the shape I'm in. So as bad as that, I guess, mental illness I had, it also carried me throughout my years, my 20s, 30s, 40s, now I'm in my 50s, and I feel better now than I've really felt in a long time. So having that mental illness kind of worked to my advantage in the long run. I'm not saying it's going to work for you, but it worked for me. And if you kind of can get control of it and utilize it to your, if you're wanting to be too thin, I'll just use for an example, let's just nip that in the bud. You don't have to get super thin. If you want to stay thin, but a healthy thin, I talk about it. Not thin where you're, malnutrition and you're weak and all that. Stay thin, but, and kind of hold that weight. Maybe use your clothing as a parameter. But the good news is if you stay relatively thin as you get older, hopefully, you're going to be in really decent shape. You're not going to maybe get diabetes and all these other things. Same with guys. If you want to get bigger, I get bigger, but maybe there's a fine line there. You don't have to be 250. You might just want to tap out at 220. Maybe 225. You don't have to carry all that weight like I did. And, and then as time goes on, you may want to lose a little more weight, and you may be 50 years old and 205 pounds and be in incredible shape. So, anyways, that's all I got for you today. Take care, and I wish everyone nothing but the best.